So this is the rundown, and we have Josh Koo with us today. Now, Josh requires no introduction, but perhaps you've only been foiling a couple of days, so in that case, I'm going to give you one. Josh is a world-class waterman. He's capable, or really a master on multiple craft in various conditions, from small beach breaks to scary big water. He's probably become one of the most recognisable foilers in the world, thanks to his long-form videos at a time when marketing people were telling us we could only have the attention span for 45 seconds. Josh gave us more of what we wanted. He's been repping some of the high-end brands in foiling, and not least of all, his iconic style and skill on the foil. So welcome, Josh.
Thank you very much, Jordan. That was a very, very generous introduction.
Right.
I'm excited to be on your podcast, and I think I'm your first guest, am I? So,
yeah, you are. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's you gave me kind of the rundown of the idea of this podcast, and I think it's super informative and a really good idea. So I'm excited to share our knowledge.
Cool. So yeah, the idea here is to talk about the local run. And so, Josh, your local run is in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. Do you want to just give us a bit of a general overview of foiling, of downwind foiling in Sydney?
We're pretty lucky where we have conditions. If they're not, there's two different types of winds that we get. You either get in summer predominantly a northerly wind, and in winter a southerly wind. But throughout the year we get winds that are coming from both ways, but that's the usual pattern. And we're pretty lucky that some days you can be going, from Bondi to Maroubra, and the next day you could be going back the other way. So it's always super dynamic. It's an interesting coastline. It has a lot of bays and beaches, so we're always going around a few different obstacles, and it's an exciting run that's never twice the same.
Yeah, that's a pretty good overview. What about more broadly in Sydney? Like, that's, I guess, our specific local run where we live in the eastern suburbs. What about for just a wider view of downwind foiling in Sydney?
I guess the other hotspot is the northern beaches. They just have a really big community of foilers, mainly because A, it's not banned there, and B, they've just got such a variety of different beaches, and for every condition that the ocean and the weather throws at you, there's always somewhere good to foil. They have definitely a more user-friendly coastline for downwind. They just have a lot of access points where, say, if you're not going to make the run, you can come in safely. With that in mind, with it being a lot of beaches, there's less refraction, and it's just a nicer place to learn to downwind foil. So the northern beaches is definitely a good training ground, and I've always said to Jordan and the other crew that have been downwinding the eastern beaches, our local run. If you can downwind our local run, you can downwind anywhere in the world.
Well, that's encouraging because it still owns me some days. Now so we've got essentially our eastern beaches run, northern beaches with a few different options, and then there's Botany Bay as well.
Definitely where we all kind of put our training wheels on was that Botany Bay. That's just like, it's what we all call a bay run. There's one energy source, and that's purely from the wind. So you can pretty much only downwind in there when it's over 20 knots. It's quite an obvious pattern of wind bumps. If you're going to miss the first bump, there's going to be a bump behind it and another bump behind that. It's not really refracted. There's not a ground swell, a secondary swell, a tertiary swell. It's just realistically just the wind pushing you. So it's really good to understand the basics of downwinding, the patterns that you need to understand, and the troughs that you need to fall into. So Botany Bay has been an amazing training ground, and Jordan and I, we both live, 15 minutes away from it. So it's super handy, and it's safe as well. Like the main one that we do in a southerly, there's a beach that runs and a road that runs along the whole thing. So if there's any issues, you can just peel out early. And I think what's really handy about this bay as well is that there's pretty much only one direction wind that it doesn't work in, a northerly, but every other direction, easterly, southerly, westerly, they're all amazing runs. And saying that they're like, your training wheels run, like me and Jordan still do it when it's on because it's super fun. It's kind of like it's a little version of Hood River, really, like a little kind of Babyhood River, that it's just fun to put on the big surf wing and just turn. It's not about speed, it's about just surfing.
Yeah, that's cool. I think too, it's so good to have an option when the wind is east or west, where you know the ocean is completely on our coast is out of the question. To have options in those wind directions is pretty cool. So let's hone in on what would be your local run. Let's just focus on the northeast wind days, because it's probably the more common run. So I'm interested to know things like the distance, how you get into it, who's doing it. So let's focus on the Bondi to Maroubra run.
What you're looking for here is basically anything over 15 knots to start with. Obviously, more wind the better. Like 20 knots, you're going to have better opportunity. But from 15 knots onwards, it's a really good run. If you're an out-of-towner, I think the first thing to do is probably just contact one of us, because we'd love to take you on our local run.
Yeah, for sure.
I love showing people our run.
I think it's great we've received such great hospitality in other people's runs, so it'd be great to return that favour.
Totally. So what Jordan and I usually do is we either organise, our wives to either drop us one way, or what we normally do is we car shuffle. So we'll park our cars at the bottom, which is Maroubra. We'll jump in one car and then drive up to Bondi. Another way that a lot of the local boys have been doing as well is meeting at the bottom and then Ubering up to the top, which I think we found is, on average $30, is it?
Yeah,
$35?
probably. Yeah.
You split that between 2 or 3 guys, it's, $10 to do a run. I'd pay that any day to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more.
Yeah, a little bit, let's go.
Yeah, but that's where you got to kind of weigh up what's your time worth. And because if you do the normal car shuffle where, say, Jordan and I meet at the bottom, one of us drives up the top, we do the run, and then we drive back up to the top to collect the car and then come back, it's easily even if you're smashing the run and not falling, both of you are not falling and there's no faff, you're lucky to do that in 2 hours, right?
Yeah. I've calculated. I've done the calculation of the ratio.
Yeah.
It's 5.7 times total trip to time on foil. Basically, it's about 18 to 20 minutes of foiling if you have a clean run. Most people can probably do it in 18 or 19 minutes. 17's fast, 15 is stupid. So basically, basing it on 18 minutes, it's 5.7 times kind of best case scenario.
Where we live is Sydney's most busiest area in Australia. So you got to, and usually how our wind works is our wind fills in the afternoons. And the afternoons usually times with school traffic, work traffic. We don't have a highway that runs along the back of our beaches, unfortunately. They're all really dicky little roads that go in and out, and it's like little rabbit warrens.
Past
However, car shuffles are always the best part of the downwind run. You talk about your times, you talk about what you want to focus on this run. So I kind of nearly lean into it. There's always a way to do a run. And me in the very early days, I was shameless and I would literally do a run and not organise any logistics and then just ask on Instagram, can someone pick me up and bring me back to my car?
Yeah.
I don't recommend that because sometimes I would have to then call my dad or someone to come pick me up because no one would come get me. Back to the run. It is a 7-kilometre run, is it, Jordan?
Yeah, I typically do 7.2, very consistently. Yeah, 7.2 k's.
Which equals to what you were saying before, roughly an 18-kilometre run. We get times... Yeah, the nor'easter generally isn't as fast as the other way around, going the reverse way. But you can do times from minute 50 kilometres to 3 minute 20 kilometres if you really want. So it's a quite a dynamic little stretch of coastline that you can choose your poison of what foil you want to ride and what lines you want to take. But the nice thing about going from Bondi to Maroubra is that jumping off Bondi, not only is it probably one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, but where you jump off is directly into the wind line. You paddle less than a minute and you're in the wind line. You can actually paddle up straight away and, your run's done in 18 minutes. Where you come in, actually, I'll go through all the stages. Hey, Jordan?
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so where you paddle out, which is either from North Bondi Beach, or you can drive up to the North Bondi Buckler Headland, where there's a tiny little car park there. It's always hard to get a park, especially on a nice day. But you walk down the stairs there and it brings you to a little fishing club, which has a boat ramp. That's a really easy place to set off. You paddle out, there's usually a few snorkelers, swimmers, kids jumping off the rocks. It's super pretty.
I ran into one the other day, didn't see him. He just, I was just paddling. Anyway, go.
So yeah, you paddle out for probably a minute and you can get to the wind line. Depending on your paddle skills, sometimes people like to paddle even further out past where the wind line starts to give themselves a better runway to get going. However, you can pretty much paddle up right at the point there, and then you just have to start cutting left. For less than a kilometre, it doesn't even sound that long, but you have pretty clean bumps and organised swell that you can really turn and surf, but you want to be cutting left, because if you follow those swells and wind, you're pretty much going to go into South Bondi or Tamarama, which you don't want to. You want to because there's a point called Clovelly that you have to get around, and you have to just cut left. And
well, you need to be wide of it too, I think, because there's so much junk coming off that head.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me when I started understanding this run was that I would always make it from the paddle up to like close to Clovelly, which I think's 2 kilometers. And because that section, obviously you got fresh legs, you can pump yourself out of any issues. But then when you hit that 2 kilometer mark, I'd always get a bit fatigued, and you get to that Clovelly point and there's a lot of refraction coming straight off that point, because pretty much the way that the swell's heading hits that cliff and pushes waves directly back at you. Like now I nearly use those refractions to go further out to sea, because you're going at the cliffs and then you use those refractions to then go back further out to sea. That's something that if you're not used to the run or you're not used to riding reverb, that it's just going to confuse the hell out of you. But just because that's my local run now, I kind of understand how it works. You can pretty much this whole run, you can cut left the whole way and you're not going to end too far out to sea, because the energy's, a lot of it's pushing into the beach. So, but the main thing is to not go with that main energy, because you will just end up at shore.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of cutting left. You have a pretty good run for the first kilometre, and then you got to deal with a lot of refraction that comes off Bronte and Clovelly. Still keep cutting left, and then you get to Clovelly Point, and then from there you have pretty much a clean run until you get to this island called Wedding Cake Island. And I don't know if you find this, Jordan, but like from Clovelly Point to Wedding Cake, I always feel like the energy's not so much there anymore. Do you feel like the bumps kind of settled down a little bit?
Yeah. No, that's often a bit of focus time and get into just trying to find an efficient rhythm. But I'm also, through that period, I'm trying to save energy for what comes next. So that's the section where I agree with you, the energy does drop a little, but you also need to be really efficient through there, because that next section, I think, can be the most difficult. And that is the thing that is most people's kryptonite.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because if you don't keep cutting left, you end up in Coogee, which is the last safe point until you get to Maroubra. You want to make sure that by the time you're going past this island, which is an obvious island, like the rocks stick out of the water, it's not like a reef that doesn't barely break its head. You want to just make sure that you're a good 200 meters wide of that, at least.
Yeah, I think
if you're just skimming that island, you're in a world of hurt to get around the next few obstacles. So from Wedding Cake to the main next point, which is called Lurline, it's a really tricky section because it's just all backwash. And by that stage, you've been foiling for probably 10 minutes and you're probably a bit fatigued. If you're not monitoring your breathing or resting, you've just been pumping the whole way because you're panicking, like your body's going to eventually give out. So it's important to just keep you cool keep edging left, and just trusting the patterns that are coming behind you. A lot of people, when they see backwash, they freak out and they forget that the patterns of wind bumps and swell behind them are still doing what they're doing, but the refraction is just confusing it. But they're still there.
Yeah.
So you got to trust the glide and the pattern that you're on, that it's going to still be there, but just go up and over that, that mogul. That's the refraction.
I think of it just like, sometimes you're driving and at night and you just get like someone hit you with high beams and you can't see. And there's this moment where you got to just like trust you're still in the lanes and then know that vision will come back in a sec. And it's a bit like that through that section. Anytime I've had trouble there, it's because I've pumped myself into trouble. Whereas there's this moment where you go, I don't know where this bump is, but you just got to trust you're still in it and that it's going to reappear for you. And then you're like, oh, great, there it is. It's almost like the less you do through there, the better.
It's tricky too, because like sometimes if you're not used to refraction and reverb, you end up breaching because, usually when you start seeing reverb like that, I like to kind of ride a bit low, because sometimes when you think about it, like if you're high on your mast and a reverb comes through, it might all of a sudden drop out and then you're flying in the air. So I like to kind of ride safe when I know there's a lot of reverb around, just to make sure you don't breach or you don't do something silly. I also like to aim my board. So say we're going left out to sea to get to the end point of Maroubra, and then you've got reverb coming back at you. If you aim your board parallel to the reverb, if you're cutting left and going parallel, you can sometimes tap into that energy that's pushing back out from the reverb. I don't know, does that make sense to you?
Yeah. I think it's advanced. Like, I'm seeing them more and more. It's like the reverb is like a serious challenge to newer downwind foilers and an asset to experienced foilers. You can actually start using it. Yeah, whereas I think in the first stages of learning this run, like it just messes you up.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating for sure. I used to not see it at all, but that just comes with experience. Experience builds confidence, and like you start, in areas where, say, this section that we're talking about, where you're like panicking and your heart rate's going up, and instead of trusting your glide, you're pumping. You're just burning yourself out. But I think if you keep your cool and start trusting the patterns and even understanding the patterns of reverb, like you can all use it to your advantage for sure. Yeah. So that kind of brings me to, once you get past, or when you get to the point of low line, you really want to be at least 200, 300, 500 meters off that point. I like to cut that point close just because I'm a bit cocky now and I like the energy that hits. There's a little kind of reef just off that point, and I like to take the left-hander that then shoots you into the next section, which is called Marn Pool. It's like a little amphitheater. There's a lot of people that go down there because there's an ocean pool, and it's really beautiful. But you can be like 20 meters off the rocks there, and there's like a little left-hander there, and I always do cutbacks there because I'm a show pony and I want to show up in front of all these swimmers that I'm having the best time ever. But I also really like that section because literally as you get around that corner, mentally and physically, the reverb pretty much stops, and you're like, oh, okay, everything's easy again now.
It's like a switch, hey? It's almost like right on Marn Pool, I think, too. I feel like it's, once I'm at the pool, it just goes, and now we're like just lined up.
Yeah, totally. So I love that section because I think also the topography of the ocean floor changes and it gets a lot shallower. I think that the energy of the swell slows down because, it's about to hit the shore and break. So you can actually start riding swells for longer and it feels like now you're just surfing. Yeah. And I think that section that's probably my most favourite part of the run, from Lurline Point, Marn Pool, to the finish, South Maroubra. That's when I just start surfing the hell out of it. I just literally will just start, roundhouse cutbacks the whole way to the finish. South Maroubra, you kind of want to, depending, sometimes we have a little bit of seaweed that's collected along the shore. The easiest place is to come right in the corner. There's usually a rip tide there that's a bit deeper, and there's not waves in it, so you just literally can foil straight up to the shore. Sometimes, well, most of the time, there's a lot of surfers and swimmers out there, so you got to kind of avoid those people, but like you can kind of sometimes catch a wave straight in where the big surf club is on the beach, because that's usually where our cars are parked, just kind of to the side of that, so that's a good kind of visual point to aim for. And yeah, you come into shore and try not to hit the sandbank. And I think another point that I learnt from the race that we did at the start of the year was that for people that aren't from Australia, we have red and yellow flags that are for designated swimming area.
You need to go up through the red and yellow flags.
Go up to the red and yellow flag. Red and yellow flag. Go up to the red and yellow flag, thank you.
Everyone up in the red and yellow flags.
The same place is in between the red and yellow flags.
Red and yellow flags up.
Got to go up to the red and yellow flags. See the red and yellow flags?
这个地方不能游泳，如果要游泳的话，到那儿去。Yeah, just whatever he said.
So don't go in through the flags. Avoid the flags, because or else you will get someone telling you off.
Yeah, stay out wider, take a perpendicular line to the beach. Yeah, it's probably the safest. Parking South Maroubra is, well, it's difficult on a busy day, but, you know.
Parking's fine.
North Bondi can be a
Yeah,
bit of a
there's
challenge.
like 2 different car parks down there. There's the one further in the corner, like at the dead end, which is where we park.
Yep.
And then if that's overloaded, there's another car park right next to it that's just behind the big surf club. You don't have to pay for parking, which is awesome, because at the other end, Bondi, you can find parks that are not paid parking, but a lot of them are paid parking. So,
Local punters doing this, how big's the crew? I mean, I asked a question I know the answer to, but yeah, I mean, Northern Beaches has a lot of guys, like probably 20, 30, it seems, regularly doing it. What about the Eastern Beaches run?
yeah, we're still at the stage where we know everyone who does the run. We're all in a WhatsApp group. We never do a run and you're on the run and you're like, oh, who's that? Like, we usually know, except the other day, but we did know him, it was Rob. We hope that it gets to that stage where, like, you know, when I've been in Perth or Hawaii, where you do a run and you're like, oh, who's that? Like, and then you're like, oh, like, you know, but it's not quite there yet. The Northern Beaches definitely has that. You'll be on the run and you just randomly see other people on the run, which is really cool. The run, I love it. Like, you know, it's short. It would be nice to have a 15-kilometre run that is our local, but I love how technical it is. I love how it's not the same every day.
Yeah, it prepares you well for going anywhere, right?
Totally. And like, you know, Perth and I have been doing some crazy fast times in the last couple of months. And like, I think there's huge potential to do some of the world's fastest times right in our backyard, which is really, really cool.
Compared to other places you've foiled, you've done downwind in probably as many places around the world as anybody. Say 1 being easiest, 5 being difficult, where would you rate your local run?
Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But the southerly you think's a little bit more difficult. You might give a 4.
I think
4.5.
so, for sure.
Yeah.
I would say the southerly's more like a 4.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how regularly are the conditions lining up for you to be able to do your local run? I mean, this isn't Maui, right? We are.
Yeah. No, it's not Maui, but like we get downwind nearly every second day. We're so, like, I reckon out of a week you could downwind 5 days a week.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. Okay.
And like that's mainly because, and people would probably laugh at us, but like you know, we downwind when it's 8 to 10 knots. Like, it's just we're so lucky here on the east coast of Australia. We always have swell.
Yeah.
So, you know, if there's the wind going in the right direction and the swell going in the right direction, and it's only 8 to 10 knots, you can totally downwind.
Yeah. Well, I would put a caveat on that and say that I think for the A team, like for you and Perth, you could probably do it 4 times a week. But I think for people that are a bit lower in their skill level at that time, it's probably really 1 to 2 max. You know, it's those stronger days that they're going to need. So yeah, I certainly for myself would not see myself doing it 4 times a week, even if I had the time. But for you in Perth, I believe that.
I think another good point is because our run is so short, I've been foil driving upwind. I can pretty much get to Clovelly Point.
Okay.
And then I downwind back home. I don't have to worry about any logistics.
Yeah, that's cool.
I run it a little bit fine, where I pretty much upwind the whole way up there with the motor, and get to like nearly 10-15%, and then it leaves me like no room for any mistake. But that's just kind of the way I run. I like those little challenges.
Yeah.
Nor'east is just, and then I think that's another thing that we forgot to mention. Nor'east is just always nicer because it's usually sunny, it's warm, you're in your board shorts, and southerly usually is a colder day or a wind, and it's like you got to sometimes wear a wetsuit, or it's just not as nice. It's usually like a grey day, or maybe a little bit of rain with it.
Yeah, the nor'easter is like the summer wind, and the southerly is a weather system that's come through. So yeah, cool. Josh, awesome. Thanks so much. I hope people have learned something here and would feel more comfortable coming to the eastern suburbs or being here and going, I want to go downwinding, and they'd know how to come at that a bit more. And reach out to us, and we'd love to welcome you to our local run.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, mate.